Good morning, all. We are going to go ahead and get started because we have a hard stop at 10:15. So we appreciate you all coming to the second of 3 town halls for the summer, and we will start off with a prayer.
Let us pray. O God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, our only Savior, the Prince of Peace, give us grace seriously to lay the heart of the great dangers that we are in by our unhappy divisions. Take away all hatred and prejudice, and whatever else may hinder us from godly union and concord, that, as there is but one body and one Spirit, one hope of our calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of us all, so we may be all of one heart and of one soul, united in one holy bond of truth and peace, of faith and charity, and may with one mind and one mouth glorify you, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay, you will notice that there is a microphone here in the middle. Much like last time, our intent's going to be to make a short presentation on a couple of topics, and then we will open the floor to questions. We have been asking for the last month for questions online. Some of those have come in. We'll start with those, and then time permitting, we will go to questions here. So, being in the church is a wonderful place to hold this, with the exception we can't do a pretty presentation, so please follow along here, make copious notes. We'll start off with the norms, and these are a subset of the norms that your vestry follows each and every time we get together. Hopefully they feel like second nature to you. As I said last time, the easy way to think about it is, remember, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. Everybody treat each other that way, but respect everyone, speak one at a time, listen actively, and most importantly, when things feel the strongest, that's the best time to remember you could be wrong. And by the way, that goes for me and everybody on the vestry too. So, we've gone over the norms. We're going to have an update in a few seconds from whoever he is, Lou. Sorry about that, Lou. Nancy's going to review some staff changes, and then I'm going to talk about the parking lot, bring you an update on that, and then we will open the floor to questions. Brother Lou?
Good morning. This is the report I gave last month. This is the report I'm giving this month. It's very short. The discernment team continues to work, and as we stated in our earlier update, we're in a very competitive market. Just to remind you, for every 6 vacancies there are in churches around the nation, there is only 1 candidate available. We have had no candidates to consider in May and June. I'm happy to report the discernment team is back in an interview mode, so we do have candidates. We anticipate this is going to be a very active period. I can't be more specific than that. All I ask is that you continue to use the discernment prayer to support our efforts. We look forward to reporting to you very soon. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nancy Hodder. I'm one of the wardens, along with Dan. Your vestry has been really busy trying to maintain equanimity and keep our programs running so that we are prepared for the arrival of a new priest in charge. and we thank God for this opportunity to work for you. We've had some staffing changes, and the first person I want to introduce to you is Mr. Dwight Graham. Dwight, would you stand so that everybody can turn and see you? I was reconnected with Dwight last spring. We had been colleagues at Monacan High School. I see Steve Cunningham nodding because he was also part of that pack. But anyway, it's so good to see old friends here. Dwight came to us last spring, well before Donald retired. He has sung in the choir since his arrival, and now I want to tell you a little bit about his background. He is a graduate of the University of Richmond. He was choral director at Manchester High School before transitioning to Monacan High School in '79, where he retired in 2005. He has played in various churches in the Richmond area, 49 years to be exact, before retiring from St. Mary's Episcopal in 2018 as organist and choir master. He's not been lazy during his retirement. He has worked as the administrative assistant at Hathaway Tower before he retired from that position in 2018. If your children went to Midlothian High School, or perhaps you went to Midlothian High School, you may have had his wife, Michelle Gregory Graham, as your chorus teacher. They have one daughter, Meredith Clare. Now, let me explain. Dwight is our interim director of music. We are expecting that he will be with us until a new priest in charge is called. However, given the timeliness of things, we're expecting that Dwight will be with us until the new year. So he is here, he's busy, he's an accomplished organist, pianist, and choral director, and we welcome you, Dwight. Now, Tara Keevan will come to update you on our next position, our next open position.
Good morning. I am Tara Keevan. For those of you I've not met, I am the vestry representative to the Children and Youth Formation. Can you hear me if I don't use this?
No.
Okay, all right. Yes, Steve, I hear you. So we have 4 wonderfully qualified candidates that we have interviewed 3 of them this past week, and there is 1 more to be interviewed next week, and our hope and prayer is that by the end of this week, we are making an offer to a candidate to fill that position. So we are hugely excited about that, having that in place for the fall. I will take this opportunity while I have a microphone to make a shameless plug. We need volunteers. Children's Chapel, Sunday School, and it is not a huge commitment. You can do 1 a month or 1 a year. We would love to have you. And if you are not Safe Church trained, I am happy to help with that. Let me know. Come find me. I've got my name tag. And we can set you up for that because we would love to have you help out.
And I apologize. I should have started off by introducing myself. I'm Dan Walker. And we should also introduce the rest of your vestry. So if you're on the vestry, could you please stand up? Jared's behind most of y'all, so you can't see him hiding in the back like a good Episcopalian. So, thank you, vestry. One of the things I would ask you is if there's any one of those folks standing up that you don't know well, communication is a two-way street. Come approach us. I'm trying my best to get to know people that I don't know, but it'd be really helpful if y'all would come up to somebody you don't know and get to know. Because everybody that you saw standing and those that aren't here are really devoted to doing the best they can for you and this parish. And the better we know you and the better we know what your wants are, the better we can serve. Okay. The project that everybody is anxious to hear about, the parking lot. So what I'm going to do is just briefly, this project is so large, it helps to know a little bit of the background. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes going over some background, talk about the timeline, what you can expect to see and when you can expect to see it, changes. What will the future parking lot look like? Give you some of the headlines there. And then lastly, what we need from you. This project has been a long time coming. Fred Bernhardt once told me that when he was warden of the church, he was committed to having the parking lot fixed before he went off vestry. It's just, and it's not because of anything other than it is a huge project and a lot of things have gotten in the way. So, and I'm not even going to guarantee you I get, the derivations completely right, but I will tell you that back in 2019, we had some folks that were really committed to the changes that the church physically needed to make. There may be others, but I know Tommy Gerganis, Lou Markwith, and Greg Collada were intimately involved in this work. And then COVID hit, and everything kind of went kapooey. So fast forward to the last couple years, Eric Frazier has then picked up the ball to try to resurrect it. And the beginning of this year, the vestry voted on what are we going to do and when are we going to do it. And there was a lot of back and forth discussion about this, but we made the decision as a vestry that we needed to do it now. We cannot continue to kick the can down the road. There's a lot of things going on, but this is something that desperately needs to be done. So we made the commitment to do it, and we made that commitment even though we didn't have the funds to complete the project. Now let me speak a moment about that. Money had been raised, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in addition to other pledges for the parking lot, we had one anonymous donor who made a significant donation without which this wouldn't be happening. So whoever that donor is, whether they're here, whether they're online, for the vestry, for the whole parish, I say thank you. We appreciate that. So that enabled us to move forward. So part of the process, and this goes back, I think, last year or four, we got a professional design, the Timmons Group helped with the design. The design included not just the paving, but also the lighting. We believe that it's important if you're going to do this, the time is right to fix the lighting when you fix the parking lot so that you don't have to go dig up the parking lot to do lighting later on. So a plan was created, and there were a number of solutions considered, including a green solution where there would be a more permeable, I'm looking at Eric to make sure I use the right words, he's the smart one, I'm just the pretty face on this, okay? Did I hear any laughter? Okay. A more permeable solution, and which really would have been a neat thing, outrageously expensive. We're talking 50 to 100% increase over the cost of what we're going to do. We did get multiple proposals in. We had two finalists, which were really close. You could, stone's throw between them in price. And we ended up going with ProSeal, which if you've been around Richmond for long, you know the name ProSeal. And then Master Electric as the electrical contractor. And I can tell you, having worked with them over the last month or two, I feel incredibly comfortable about the people we chose. So that's how we got to where we are. So, timeline of what to expect. First of all, trying to nail down either of these guys, especially the paving company, on timing is kind of like trying to nail down a politician about a question. It's just not going to happen, and it didn't. So the timing that you see is the best estimate we have, and the primary problem is going to be weather. Weather doesn't bode well for this type of project, and we've had a fairly wet early summer. So, but first thing had to get done is we had some shrub work that needed to be done. So certainly as you drove in today, I'm sure you noticed that all those horrible shrubs, no offense to anybody who loved those shrubs, in the islands are now gone. They were ripped out, and the hedge by the turnaround here has been scalped on the inside. There's no other way to refer to it other than scalped. And I got to tell you, that's the most impressive thing I've seen, because I was convinced it was just not going to work, the amount that we had to cut into it to be able to do the cement work. Personally, I think they did a fine job of doing it, and doing it to the best of their abilities to give us room for the cement work. Any place you see timbers out there, landscape timbers, in the future will be concrete. So including on that turnaround, that's going to be a concrete retaining wall instead of the timber retaining wall. So that's the reason we had to do landscaping. Another thing that we also are going to have to do some pruning, significant pruning to one of the crepe myrtles because of where a lamppost is going to go. But Eric Frazier has educated me that we want to put off doing that as long as humanly possible and do as little as humanly possible until the winter, early spring, when we can do a more significant, appropriate pruning. And by the way, if you love the crepe myrtles around here like I do, all of them need pruning. They are gorgeous, they are big, but they're too big for where they are. So just be forewarned, you're going to see more pruning to come. Electrical. The way we know the electrical got started is because day one we cut off the phone lines and we cut off the internet. And the church didn't have phone or internet for 3 days. So we know the project has begun when that started. The anticipated completion will be the 21st. And again, these are ballpark dates when that will be done. And when I say done, that part of the electrical that impacts the parking lot will be done. There's some other parts, and we'll talk about it at the end, that won't get done until probably September timeframe, but it won't impact the parking lot. The next step will be concrete, which basically will take a week. I've given you dates in there. The next part is the paving. The paving consists of excavation, and they got to pull out 2 to 4 inches of stuff, of old asphalt, and haul it away, and then the actual paving. It's actually 5 or 6 days of work, but the timing, and the reason the 18th is on there is for no other reason than that is our drop dead date. That's the date we gave both contractors as it needs to be done, completely done, gifts exchanged by the 18th. And we have got the commitment from both parties, with the exception of some of the lamps that aren't in the parking lot, will be done by them. The parking lot will have to be closed when we're doing the excavation. And again, the excavation basically should take 2 days. They will immediately, as soon as they finish hauling off the last of the excavation, come in and start paving, which should take about 3 days, 2 to 3 days. So again, it's 5 or 6 days total. So we're not going to know exactly when we're going to start until we're ready to start, but the parking lot at that point will be closed for at least a week. And so we also anticipate, and more to come, as soon as we know, you'll know. And we anticipate some creative services for for 1 or 2 Sundays. Can't imagine it being more than 2. Hope and pray we can, the Lord is with us and we can keep it to 1. And so Grace will help us come up with creative solutions for that. Changes you will see. First of all, we are going to, right now we have up front 5 handicap parking spots. We're going to double that to 10. The 5 that you have in front of, and keep me honest here, it's in front of the library and over toward, where's Mary Allagood? It's not the parlor, whatever you call that fancy room. The who? The lobby. Those 5 spaces will remain, and then 5 spaces behind it. What's going to be really neat is now where there's kind of like a curbing, the sidewalk is going to match the height of the parking lot at that point. So that whole section, you'll be able to take a wheelchair and roll it right up, and we will be redoing the ramp area there that leads to the ramp that comes up to the doors in the lobby. There will be no handicap parking in the front of the church. There will be no parking in the front of the church. That is an emergency fire lane. It needs to be an emergency fire lane. So we're going to widen it slightly and leave it for what it's designed for, which is emergency use only. The lot is going to be laid out for one direction only. So closest to the church, I think this is right. This is the way it is right now. Going this way, the back side coming that way. That will improve safety, reduce the chance of running into each other as we come and we go. It will be striped, okay? So for some of you, that makes you cringe. For others of you, you're excited. We will not have that Williamsburg look. Those pebbles that we put over top that look so wonderful and that are so horrible for a parking lot surface will be gone. ProSeal does a lot of work in Williamsburg, and they said even the people in Williamsburg hate Williamsburg pebbles on the asphalt. Those cement wheel stops are going to be gone. We're going to have lined spaces now, so you won't have those cement, so you won't be at risk of running your car over them and tearing up the undercarriage. We will have them in front of all sidewalks, and we will have them at handicap spots. But other than that, there will be no cement wheel stops. As I mentioned earlier, landscaping timbers will be replaced with concrete curbing. Sorry, Grace. There will be no designated parking for clergy or the music director. This is not to free up 3 more spaces. This is Richmond Security telling us it is not considered safe best practice to designate, as sad as this seems, you don't want to designate where your clergy park. So we listened to Chesterfield Police, and that's their recommendation, and we're going with it. On the lighting side, and by the way, I mentioned the 3 amigos who were so important in the early part of this. Tommy Gerganis, who's looking very mild back in the back of the church, he has stepped up tremendously to help us with the electrical. He speaks the lingo, incredibly knowledgeable, and so again, we would be in a world of hurt without him. So Tommy, keep me honest if I say anything wrong here. Yay! LED lighting. So the lighting you're going to see in this parking lot is the way it should be lit. We came out from vestry the other week, and I'm going, I'm a 6'2", really big guy, and I wasn't comfortable. I mean, it's so black, so many places for somebody, a nefarious person to hide. It's really concerning. So this is going to be a well-lit parking lot. You, your parents, your children, anybody on this campus should feel safe in our parking lot. The lighting is going to be spectacular. There are going to be 7 24-foot lighting poles in the parking lot. So there's 3 small ones, really decorative kind now, in the middle that don't give a whole lot. These are going to be 24 foot. 4 of them are going to be right down the middle of the parking lot. There's going to be one closer to the entrance, whichever way thank you, Greg, Salisbury Road is, and then 2 more back at the back parking lot. So total of 7 there. And this is where I left my notes at home. There are going to be 10 decorative, 12 decorative. How many decorative poles are there? 13. I would have eventually got there. 13 decorative poles. So any place you see a pole now, there are going to be new ones. Again, with state-of-the-art lighting, that kind of Williamsburg look. I mean, very attractive polling. Those have had supply chain delays, so those are going to be the ones that take a little while to get here. I think that's. I think I already did that. Lastly, what we need from you. First, patience. Lord knows you've been patient so far since 2019, just a little longer. Ready. Be ready to react. We're not going to be able to give you 2 weeks notice. This thing that happened out here, we had planned on all that being covered up. There was a oh heck moment, as there always is, and therefore we had to close. We didn't have 2 weeks to tell you all that, so we're going to let you know as soon as we can. But be ready to react. Be aware. The parking lot has been a bit treacherous for a while, so we gave you the ability to practice when it was a minefield for the last year or two, to being aware. Please continue to be aware until the parking lot's done, and then afterwards. Before, because there's going to be stuff happening, and then afterwards because it's a change, it's a new pattern, and people are going to get used to it, so please be aware. And lastly, I was raised a Baptist, can't get away without passing the plate. Grace told me I couldn't actually pass the plate, but as I mentioned earlier, we've had generous donations that enabled us to cover a significant portion of this, but not all of it. And so the vestry believed that this was so important, we took out a loan for part of it. Our intent, our hope, our prayer is to be able to have that loan for a year or less and to pay it off. So I won't get into details now because we haven't worked out details, but I will tell you, we're going to need to do a capital campaign to raise money to pay off the lot. What we're doing in the meantime is we are spending time and effort to do a thorough review of this building. We've had the HVAC system reviewed and come up with what needs to be done. What keeps you cool here was put in the 1990s, so it needs to be replaced. But we've also brought in a building inspector to look at the building from top to bottom, left to right, every way possible, so that we can get a firm picture of what this beautiful structure needs. Okay, we're stewards, and we're stewards of this building. And so we're taking the time now so we can understand what we need to do to go forward. That's it for me. Key fobs. Technology is a beautiful thing. The reason if it feels like we're not rolling this out quite as fast as we thought we were going to, it's because we're not rolling this out quite as fast as we had planned to. We are having issues with the fobs. And what we don't want to do is go any further in issuance until we nail this down. I have the first fob. Mine has never not worked. Every other fob in between has had issues. So Lisa is working day in and day out with Richmond Security to try to figure this out, whether it's the doors themselves, whether it's the fob, whether it's operator error, whatever it is. So the fob thing is going to take us a little longer. We will continue to do what we're doing now and have the backup keys. It is coming. We're still excited about it. It's just going to take a little longer.
Thank you for being here today. One thing I wanted to do before I respond to online questions, I'd like to poll you to see which time you prefer for these summer town hall meetings. The last one on June 11th we had at the conclusion of the 10:30 service. And this one, we have moved to 9:15. There are a number of reasons for that. First of all, we don't have to do a technology setup. The second thing is that Steve is live streaming this so that parishioners who are not here have the opportunity to view and know what's going on with Redeemer. So I'd just like to see a show of hands for those who prefer the 9:15 over the 11:30. Okay. What do we see, Dan?
A whole lot. Okay, how about it'd be easier if we just go, who prefers the 11:30?
Correct. Okay, which tells me.
And it's important to count the online votes. I feel that it depends, as you pointed out.
Would you come to the mic, please?
Hi, I feel that it depends, as you pointed out, if there's a technical, visual program like a PowerPoint presentation, it's better if it's at the after 11 o'clock as opposed to 9:30 because of the setup. So, personally, I kind of prefer the 9:30, but if there is going to be a presentation like that, then my vote is for after 11 o'clock.
Okay, yes, Caroline? You want to turn around?
So when we have formation in Parish Hall, we have presentation capability, so we could have the meeting at this time in the Parish Hall.
We could, but there are a lot of factors. There's the live stream factor. Last time, people asked for live stream, and we weren't able to, we can't do that in Parish Hall. So what your responses are telling me is that we poll everybody when we send our follow-up. I just saw such a good crowd, and I thank you for that this morning. By the way, our next meeting is August 27th at a time and a location to be determined. Okay, that being said, I thank you all. I thank the folks who submitted questions online, and I will address those. If you want to write questions in for us to address, Jared Taylor, who's standing in the back, has cards and pens, which we'd love to retain. What we like to do after a meeting such as this is to send a communication to the parish. Last time we did it 2 days after the meeting to respond to any questions which may not have been discussed or addressed. And if you have a question that you want to pose for us all to respond to, we would ask you to come to the mic in the aisle. But I'm going to proceed. Anybody need a card? Well, while while we're answering the questions, if you decide you need a card, raise your hand and Jared will find you. All right, moving on. What is the supply of supply priests? And this is a great opportunity for us to address that. Do you want to answer this, or? I'm going to pass over to Grace, and I may make a few additions, but she's the one most, what does she need to do?
Move this way and she's going to talk.
Oh, so that folks can see me.
Yes.
There we go. So the supply priests, as we have it right now, are supply on Sundays. This means that they are here with us. You can see Ruth is our supply today, and she's here listening to the meeting. She's here to talk with folks. They're supplying additional support for me on Sundays, which is really important. So they're helping with preaching and with presiding. And looking towards the fall, I've talked with the co-wardens of maybe having something a little bit different as far as offering additional pastoral care throughout the week. But as for right now, it's help on Sundays, and it's really needed for me. So I appreciate it.
Yes. Anybody got a question relative to that? Okay, this takes us to the second question, which came in about the return of the family service that used to be at 9 a.m. This is a really nuanced situation. I'd like to explain that while we have support on Sunday, it is for the 2 existing services only. Not only to do a 9 o'clock service will be additional music, additional programs, more infrastructure than we currently have available. The other thing I'd like to let you know is I did a poll. I explained this at the last meeting. I did some online research to see what other churches in the diocese were providing 3 or more services. The 2 in the diocese who are providing 3 or more services are Bruton Parish in Williamsburg and Galilee at Virginia Beach. So what's the difference between those churches and Redeemer? One thing, they have 3 or more full-time clergy and a comparable supporting staff. What this question, which continues to arise, makes me excited about is that tells me this group of folks is ready to get back to normal. I find that really exciting. While we're talking nuance, let me tell you that our vestry has worked diligently for the past 16 months to get us to the point where we are ready and prepared to receive a priest in charge. Personally, we are trying to be your representatives, and we are trying desperately to consider the needs of the entire parish when we are making decisions. This vestry has, as a norm, you would agree, vestry members, we rarely leave here in under 2 hours. Every issue that comes across our meeting agenda is considered thoroughly and tabled when we can't agree, or I won't say agree, so that we can't build a consensus that is mutually satisfying. Because this is a group that's committed to doing the best for the whole church. Margaret, I see you.
I have a follow-up to your 9 o'clock, if this is prior to that. Okay.
So my question is, I'm not sure that we got a full answer to the question that was submitted here. I think the nuance that I see in this question, the nuance that I hear from younger families, is that whether the service is at 10:30 or it's at 9 o'clock, that there is a gap missing for our younger families where there used to be a service that was more aligned with, frankly, bringing my 13-year-old to church, or when he was 8 or 9, and feeling like he could be engaged, because it was not as formal as a service as what the 10:30 is. I grew up in a church where it was a 10:15 service just like our 10:30, and that was all that I knew. But our children know something different, and they miss that. And I think that it would be appropriate for the vestry, if there is not the capacity for the church to be able to support 3 services at this time, even though we did that prior to COVID and actually through COVID. But regardless, if there's not the capacity to be able to support it then I do believe that it would be important for someone to hear us and to create an opportunity where at least 2 of the 4 services a month at 10:30 would be aligned for our children and our youth and our families.
Thank you. And yes, we are hearing that. It's on our list. But Steve, you go for it.
To add to that, I would say specifically, the formality of the service in a large part comes through the music. And having the formal choir and the formal organ twice a month would be absolutely appropriate. Much like having the formal service from the prayer book. I think we need, in support of what you're saying, I think we need to commit to having not a 9 o'clock, a 10:30, vocabulary, which uses the piano or more contemporary music. And with respect to our lovely choir, not every service should have a choir. And this comes from a professional musician. So having those services where it's not as formal, then the bringing back some of the services we used from the New Zealand prayer book that were put into the bulletin, and bringing back some of that music that we used. I don't want to go back to the days when we handed out the binder and when you were carrying 4 different things to sing, but we can print them in the bulletin like we did. We did it for years. We did it for years with only 2 priests. We did it for years with COVID. There is no reason we cannot go back to having an alternate service that meets those needs, that meets the needs of all of the congregants. Because with respect, I'm here every service every Sunday, and I've seen the changes of people who don't come because they don't want the formal service. If we're going to meet the needs of everyone, we actually have the ability to do it without taxing our infrastructure. I understand not having 3 services under the current climate, but that doesn't prevent us from going back to having what we need.
So I have two quick additions to that. One of them is thank you for bringing up the music. My kids are here every Sunday. They don't honestly know a lot of hymns. And I would love it if we can incorporate more things from some of the alternate hymnals that we have so that they can be ministered to and learn theology through songs just as I did growing up. So I really love that idea of bringing in some music that's not just appropriate for kids, but that actually speaks to all of us just in a different vein. Also, I just wanted to make people aware with the additional service topic that does require additional volunteers. There are some Sundays where I teach Sunday school, do children's chapel, and then help with the coffee hour afterwards. I don't get to participate in a lot of the adult programming. We have a lot of people here. We have a small pool of volunteers. So if it's important to you to reach out to the families and to keep having young families walk through the doors of an Episcopal church, which is pretty amazing, and a lot of churches are really jealous of the kind of attendance that we have with young families, to be able to offer things like children's chapel, even for one service a week. It takes a big volunteer pool to be able to offer safe church standards to adults. It's not hard. Can you hand out crayons? Can you walk the kids in a straight line? We could really use a lot of help. So if it's on your heart to make these services more family friendly, to offer more services, just be aware that with that comes an additional need for volunteers. We want to make sure we're not overtaxing the ones we have, that we're pulling from a wider pool in the church. Thank you.
Hey, Nancy, if I could jump in. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all three for your comments. I stress to you, this is not new. We understand. I very much appreciate Meredith's things, because let me tell you, as somebody who works as a lay reader, as somebody who watches Tommy try to get the ushers that you need, there's a lot of volunteers. So absolutely what Meredith said, I want to repeat, even though she said it better than I did. If you want it, it's going to take some raising of hands and jumping in there. We may need help with music if we do that. So somebody interested in coming and playing and leading the music, that would be great. So be thinking about that. Be in prayerful consideration of what talents that you have that you could bring to the table, whether it's a third service, which again, I'm not sure the numbers make sense, or this idea of alternating. So regardless, we're going to need some people standing up. So thank you very much for that acknowledgement, Meredith.
Did you have a card, Jared? Oh. Well.
This is related, but are we continuing with the 10:30 service during the school year?
And the answer is.
Are we continuing with the 10:30 service during this school year?
Yes.
Whoa. I'm not sure what caused that.
No. Did I offend you?
No. Then you hear the microphone go.
It was probably too close. Sorry.
Oh, me. So we heard that. Now, the one thing I don't know that we need, and the vestry needs to talk about, is because I heard in that question the idea of not just the type of service, but the timing. So that's something else for the vestry to talk about, whether it's a 10:30 service, a 10 o'clock service. I mean, we've got to be cognizant of getting the early service out, all to kill time to come in and do their wonderful, wonderful work. Thank you, all the All-to-Gill people who are here. But I know that was the second part of that question.
My question might be more for Tara, because I was very pleased to hear that you've got so much interest in the position that's open. And I think Allison did a great job of really revitalizing the youth group over the past year. But one of the things I believe I read was an indication that there might be a split middle school youth group and a separate high school youth group. And I just wanted to, as a middle school parent, say I'm not really supportive of that idea. Last year for youth group, I think most weeks it was 6th, 7th, 8th, and maybe a few 9th graders. We really didn't have a lot of the older juniors and seniors in high school. And my concern is that if we split this group up, we're not necessarily going to attract back those older kids, and we're going to split up kids who've honestly been going to Sunday school together since they were 4 and 5 years old. And I think the numbers when I volunteered to help out were usually between 15 and 20 kids. I felt like that was a comfortable number, remembering my youth group years with Steve many years ago at St. John's and Chester, when we had between about 12 and 15 kids. That was a good number. You didn't have to stand up and you didn't have to lead, but you could feel comfortable that some of your friends would be there. And I'm afraid splitting the youth group with the numbers I see in that age group might end up with 8 or 10 kids apiece, and that's not necessarily going to be enough to get that comfort level that I recall at least, and then in observing kids in Sunday school with lower numbers, there's a lot of silence and a lot of gaps. So that's just some kind of food for thought about that issue.
So, one, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And for those I don't know, I joined the church in 2020. So I don't have the long history that some of you do. I welcome that feedback. I really do. My email is in the bulletin. Please send it to me. We want to know that stuff. I see myself as a conduit. I'm here to gather it, bring it to the vestry, and then we make those decisions that fit the programs that work the best for our kids and youth. So I really, really want that. And thank you so much for passing it on. Please email me anytime, call me. So to answer the question, it depends on the numbers. We have been discussing it. Nothing has been decided. We've had some feedback from, did I do that? We've had some feedback from parents of older children that maybe it's hard to discuss more complex, more mature topics with younger kids. So that was the catalyst for that discussion. You're absolutely right. But I appreciate the feedback about the groups because the numbers do drive that, depending on how many we had. Not to put him on the spot, but you also be looking at Jeff, who is hugely involved in the youth group. He went on the trip to Navajo land. So that's why I was looking at him to confirm the numbers because I'm still on the younger side of things. So he's much more involved in that than I am. But I appreciate the feedback and we'll certainly take that under consideration. But no decisions have been made at this point. Yeah, so I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, everyone. Anybody else? Yes, Ann.
Can I interject a little? Can everybody hear me without the mic?
No, you need to use the mic.
They can't hear you slide.
They can't hear you in the room.
So that
I'm so appreciative of the work that they do, and I heard 25% of it. I'm very sorry that I'm without talent, but I'm so glad to see that's tactless, fewer gray hairs, but I'm so glad to see young people stepping forward. But now for a little levity, and it does make me laugh. In black churches, they call the ministers that are so dramatic and they just carry on, they call that whooping. But we have Protestant ministers, I don't know if we have priests, but that they really can scare you out of your pants and with their tone and their authority. So anyway, this lady has 2 little boys, and they are just impossible, and they nearly drive her insane. So one day she says, I guess the answer is to take you to see my pastor, and maybe he can get through to you, and it'll be a help to both of us. So she takes them in, and they go in the office, and the pastor says in that scary voice, "Where is God?" And the little boys are trembling already. And then he repeats it, "Where is God?" And they're crying by this time. So the 3rd time he says it, they get up and they run out. And the older one says to the younger one, "Well, we had to get out of there. They don't even know where God is, and they think we had something to do with it."
While we're waiting for anybody else who has a question to come up to Mike, let me put a shameless plug in like Tara did. Our church, the vestry makes decisions, but our church is run by committees of wonderful people who make sure things happen. And we need, and we will always need, volunteers to join in. So let me tell you especially, Jeff Pond, who's in charge of fellowship, okay? I thought it was interesting when Cindy Barnes has been working with us, how she, who's not a member of our parish, the first word that comes to her mind when she thinks of Redeemer is fellowship, and how we come together for fellowship moments. Jeff needs help. Eric Frazier and Building and Grounds, oh my goodness, this is such a wonderful facility. We need volunteers. If your passion has to do with things with this building, outside the building, inside the building, how we do this, how we do that, painting rooms, what would make this aesthetically more appealing as we hope to continue to call people here as a place of worship. Outside, the grounds, there's all kinds of things. So if you have a passion for fellowship, if you have a passion for this facility that we have, please prayerfully consider. We will have a stewardship, what do we call it? Rally Sunday. So that'll be coming in the fall where we formally beg and plead for you to step up. Adult formation. Susan Harding, I see her bright smiling face. We desperately need some more people who are interested in the adult formation as well as the youth formation. So please take the time in the summer while you're laying at the pool and you're sunning and you're having that extra cocktail, that might just be me, about where your passion lies and where you could help. We got like 3 minutes left. Greg Collada.
Dan, I've asked for several months now some specific questions about REDS. I don't anticipate an answer today, but I would like the vestry to address it at the next meeting. And the questions are, how much gross revenue is REDS generating? Is it $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 from their tuition programs? What are they paying in rent? Are they paying on a square footage basis? Are they paying utilities? Do they pay for their maintenance, the weekly cleaning? Basically, at this point, as far as I know, the parish is supporting REDS. Now, we feel it's a symbiotic relationship. They come, the parents drop them off. Hopefully the parents get involved with Redeemer. I understand that. But I think REDS has blossomed, it's doing well, and I think it's time that they support the activities that they're undertaking. So next time.
Yeah, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I'll answer the ones I can right now, and then what we don't, when we send out this parish-wide thing, we'll include. As of this next church school year, REDS will begin for the first time to financially contribute to the church. Their budget calls for $19,000 a year. The intention is that number is going to grow as they continue to have the means to grow. We would have taken more. I think we were comfortable in the fact, and Dale knows it better than I do, they just didn't have the ability. So as they go and set tuition prices in the future, one of the things for them to consider is their contribution to our church. So that is there. Again, I don't know gross revenue. I would tell you it's a big number. It's $1 million. So it's a significant number. Gross means total income, not net of expenses going out. So gross is the big number, how much total tuition comes in. And so let's call it $1 million to get it to a ballpark. And so this year they'll be contributing $19,000, and the anticipation is the following year that number will go up.
I'd like the vestry to weigh what is their actual usage per square foot and develop a plan based on their revenue.
Yeah, we have. Jared did an analysis and looked at what other schools that are associated with churches contribute, and he came up with a number between 3 and 4% of revenue. So that would put this more in line with $36,000 a year. Dale Bateman did, and he will tell you it's not science. There's a whole lot of art, but kind of okay, this is, and we didn't do it by We didn't do it exactly per square foot, but exactly the same idea. And he came up with a dollar figure he thought would cover the cost of Reds. And it came to like 30,000. So the two numbers were two different ways of looking at it, came in really close. And that's the number that we were hoping to get from Reds. And I'm kind of hoping year 2, that's the number we'll be able to get. Good question, good question.
In closing, this is very much our relationship with Reds is very much a work in progress. Every month, the vestry has communication from Jared. Who is our Reds liaison for the vestry. We have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that stipulates the cost share between our two bodies. We're in another revision right now. It is a relationship that is never far from the vestry's mind.
And I'll just encourage anyone to please reach out to me if you have questions. This is an open book, so if you have any questions about Reds, please feel free to reach out. My email is in the bulletin.
Thank you.